Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I am AmalgamAsh. Did you enjoy yesterday's SGB ceiling video? Because I'm going to do that again today, but we're going to step through this process a lot more slowly, and we're going to look at some of the different options and things that you can do to make your ceilings different and exactly what kind of parameters you need to change to make them more customized. So we have Blender open, and this is really the only tool that you really need to use unless you want to use an image editor to edit the actual texture as well. But we'll start from the beginning. So we just made a new project in Blender, and for anybody who thought yesterday's video was too fast or anything like that, this one will kind of aim to correct that and explain things as we go along, because I fully believe in the whole philosophy that, teach me something and I might remember it for a day, but involve me and I learn. So I'm going to involve you today. So we're recording my whole screen. Don't worry about my taskbar. It's not going anywhere. I really wish I could record the screen without hitting that thing, but if you don't have a new file in Blender open, just go to File, New, and then General. And we are here. We have our brand new project. Now I prefer to have a UV editor window open, and I recommend you do the same for this set of steps, and I have a shader editor window as well, so get one of those going, and then we're just going to hold shift and press A, and that will add a mesh. You can add whatever mesh you want, but we're going to do a plane because that's our ceiling. Now the reason we're doing a plane and not like a cube or anything, as I mentioned very briefly in the video yesterday, is even though Blender and some 3D engines can support what's known as backface culling, SGB does not, sadly. And what backface culling is it allows you to view a face on a model with a texture and everything from one side, and when you go behind it, you can't see that. It's like a one-way mirror, and it's useful for video game engines because then they're not having to render both sides of the scene at once. So it's actually less taxing for them to do that if they support backface culling. But like I said, SGB does not. So if you go turn the collisions off of any given model and walk through it and look behind, you'll see that you can still see the face just in reverse. And it doesn't matter that the file comes from Blender. It could come from Maya. One of the Discord community members, Giuliani, tested this for me, so thank you, Giuliani. And we are going to try to tinker with this and get some customization going. First, I'm going to start with a very basic, just a grid covering ceiling. And yesterday I explained, click on this object here, make sure it's active anyway. You hit G, and what G does is as soon as you hit G, you are able to move this around in the 3D space. You can change its X, Y, and Z positions all at the same time with your mouse. It is not intuitive. If you're looking at this from a 3D point of view, like more than one axis off, you're going to put this in a very unpredictable spot. So that's why Blender has these guys up here where you can click and just view the different sides. If we click that, then it straightens our camera viewpoint out. We're directly above. Now when we hit G, we'll only be moving the X and Y axes. The Z is unchanged. If you find that you don't want to place this where you've accidentally placed it, Control Z will reset its position. And if you find you'd like to cancel moving it around altogether, you can just right click and it'll snap right back where it was. But right up here in the corner, right here, if you keep your eye up here, when I move this around, there's your coordinates changing. All right, so right now this plane it's got an anchor that's right in the center, and if we did not perform the movements yesterday, when we import this into SGB, the anchor would still be in the center, which means when we place the object in SGB, it will stretch from the center. Not stretch, the center will be the origin of the model, is what I'm trying to say. And if you want to work that way, that is absolutely fine. You can do that. If you prefer to be able to slap this model down without worrying about handling it from the corners, you can do that. And that's fine. My preferred way, the way that's most intuitive for me, and this is why I explained these steps this way in the video yesterday, was to move this model in such a way that the origin would now be at the top left of the object when we placed it on the map in SGB. That way I know I can navigate to the top left corner of any given panel where it's supposed to represent a floor or a ceiling, and that's where the object is actually located. So we can do that by pressing G, and then if we press X, we've now locked this thing to the X axis. It doesn't look like that's the X axis. I think let's get this corrected. Ugh. That's better. That's what I'm looking for. This is correct orientation to me. Alright, so G, then X, then instead of relying on our mouse, which, whoa, I've got some floaty business going on, we can just start entering numbers in the keypad. And if you entered 1 instead of 0.900 or any other number, like cat, if you did that, if you entered 1, then when you went into Smile Game Builder, the edge of the tile would not be seamless with the the edge of the model would not be seamless with the edge of the tile on which it sat. It would be offset. So this can be useful too, and we'll go ahead and just press 1, enter, so I can show you why that might be useful. G, then Y, then 1 again instead of 0.900, and then Z, 0.00, no, that's not right, G, that's important, Z, 0.001, enter. So now we have moved it just barely up. We've lifted it extremely little, and the reason that we have done this is if you don't lift it up and the Z height remains at 0, it will clip with the tiled floor in Smile Game Builder. So you will see horrendous clipping. We'll take a look at that too. We won't talk about that. We'll just do it. We'll actually go G, then Z, then minus 0.001 and enter. And I'll show you that as well. But we'll go ahead and we'll get a few of these different ceilings made, and we'll tinker. So we're going to go to the Materials tab, and we're going to hit New Material, and we're going to add a texture. And I've done this so many times now between this and the importing a cube into Smile Game Builder video that it doesn't even faze me. And you have to make sure that your image is going to end up being in the same folder as your ceiling, or Smile Game Builder, like I mentioned yesterday, it'll throw an error at you quickly. So we'll do that, and then we're going to make sure that that's on there. And it is. That's correct. That's fine. And I think that is about it. We're going to go to Edit Mode, click on it, make sure we triangulate it with Control T. And now we can export it. It's got to be an FBX file. And I actually have a preset here for SGB objects that just keeps the empty armature and mesh object types selected. And then if you scroll down to geometry, you just make sure that it doesn't say apply modifiers. And for armature, you make sure it does not say add leaf bones. Those are all standard, normal SGB settings that we have right now here. For scale, the scale is another thing that I wanted to explain. So your scale is going to be how many tiles this thing actually takes up once you export it. And I don't have a problem admitting to you that I don't understand the relationship between the scale in the editor and the scale on export, because I tried to export this at a scale of 1 after I resized the mesh to 0.005, and it was huge when I imported it into Smile Game Builder. So if you are a Blender Pro out there and you know what you're doing as far as that goes, power to you, that's great. I am explaining it this way because this is the only way I know how to do it. But I have resized it. I have not resized it. I mean, I resize it through the scale when I'm exporting. So in Smile Game Builder, just from adding this new mesh and not resizing the scale at all in the editor, 0.005 is going to be one tile. That's it, just one tile. And if we export this as it is now, it will take up one tile. It'll be exactly one tile wide, one tile long, it'll be a square. So if we double this number and we make it 0.01, 0.010, same number, it will now be a 2 by 2. That makes sense? Yeah, it'll be 2 by 2. And we can, you can go as high as you want to accommodate your map, but we'll go ahead and do 0.05, and we're going to do that because that's going to end up being a 10 tile by 10 tile square. So this will cover up a room that is 10 tiles by 10 tiles large with walls, and this will be a great ceiling for that. And we are going to drop you into this folder, and why don't we call you 10 by 10 clipper, and I think offset. That's for me. That is so that I know what I'm doing here. I have a couple different ceiling examples that I want to show you. So, and I'm using this castle tile just because there's no reason. I just want you to see the Smile Game Builder texture on this ceiling. It's going to look very silly, but you know, it's whatever. It's intentional. All right, and we're just going to go into our house. There's our house. We are going to grab the ceiling by going into Add Assets. I haven't imported it yet. I'm getting so mixed up between all the different times I've imported the ceiling to test. We're going to go to Maps and Objects, and then we're going to go to Add, and then my folder, which I called Just for the Video, has got the best ceiling ever and the clipper offset, and we're gonna import both of those. And we don't have to mess with the scale down the corner or anything. We did all that upon the export, and we're done. So close out of there. Now when we go to Objects, you'll notice in the tabs we have a folder called Just for the Video, because it's got to name its tab after the folder. And then we can see we have two files here, and the file name pops up when we mouse over, so we will not get them confused at all. But if we go ahead and click on the one that will clip to the floor, so apparently I did something wrong. I think that I actually, when I went to go hit minus for the y-axis, I think I hit it twice, which would have canceled it out, because if I had done that correctly, this would be at the top left, not the bottom left. But if you'd like for your anchor to be at the bottom left instead of the top left, then now you know. You just you don't enter negative y coordinates, you enter positive y coordinates. And we'll play test this just as it is. We'll go ahead and right click and make this the start point, and middle mouse click play test. The music is in here though, and I have to hit B. So that's the kind of clipping you can look forward to if you do not raise the Z at all. And I mean, if you put the right combination of graphics together, that can look really trippy and kind of cool. But it's fighting. This is called Z fighting. I think I referred to it as clipping, and maybe it is a form of clipping, I don't know, but this is Z fighting. So the two meshes, the 3D mesh that we made and the tile meshes that are rendered by Smile Game Builder, are fighting for this space. And every time we move the camera, we just have a bad time. But we can correct that. We don't have to have that there. We can raise the terrain while we're in. I'm raising the friggin' block that I'm standing on. My God. I'm a Smile Game Builder user. We can raise the terrain while it is in the house by raising this block. So one of the downfalls of using the ceiling without changing the Z height, or by only changing the Z height 0.001 in Blender, is that when you set it down, it needs to be raised by raising the terrain. Now, you can, if you want, raise the Z height further so that it will by default land on your map as an elevated ceiling. You can do that if you're planning on having maybe a lot of varying ceilings and you don't want to keep having to deal with raising the tiles on which you place them, so that you can have a little bit more control over how your map is going to look. But for like indoor scenes where you're going to have this hidden tile that you're raising, I don't think it should be a big deal. For me, I'm going to continue to use them like this because I like the functionality that you can use them as a floor as well. Not this one, because we set it too low and we did that on purpose. But now that we have it raised, we can use it as a ceiling. And I'll show you that. There's our ceiling. It's great. It still works. It's not Z-fighting with anything because Smile doesn't have a ceiling built in. And it is actually, it might be Z-fighting with like the topmost layer right there, so that if we were to have stairs and elevation, go into third person, I mean, duh, we could see the fighting there. So, but there's one more thing that I did want to explain, and that is why, instead of moving it in whole numbers, we did move it using decimal points. And, whoops, wrong one. This is the one that we just made. If you'll notice, here's your square that indicates the placement of your event, and this thing's origin is right in the center of that square. Now, let's go back outside. This can be useful if you want to move it in these whole numbers, because then you can have the appearance of something that is being held up by its corners, and that may be aesthetically pleasing to you. So this is our offset mesh, and on the ground we'll place our floor. And this floor is from the file that I created and imported in yesterday's video. So it has a correct Z height, but it does not have an offset X and Y. And you can kind of see the difference here, but we will play test and look at it in practice. It started up so fast I didn't get a chance to full screen it, but see, it is virtually seamless. I can see a little bit of it peeking there on the outside, but that's because that terrain has been rounded. So if we use a wall terrain, or if we take this terrain and we make it to where it's not rounded upon extrusion, I don't think we'll see that anymore. But other than that, it is seamless. You can't tell that it is technically above the grass tile layer. And our ceiling actually has a shadow, which works out fantastic. That's something I didn't even consider when I was making these, that they would have shadows that they cast. But now, using your newfound ceiling knowledge, you can make ceilings for days. So I'm going to go through the process once again. It's new project, Shift A to add. We're going to add a plane, and I would like to make this one cover the entire map with just one mesh, so I'm not dealing with putting down 9 different 10 by 10 tiles. And our default SGB map is 30 by 30, so that's going to be a 300 by 300 tile. So what we're going to do is we're going to do everything the exact same. We're just going to change the scale of the mesh when we export this. I think I'm going to make my own texture. I'm going to go ahead and erase all of the background of a canvas in Clip Studio Paint Pro. I'm going to grab the running color spray brush and I'm just going to go ham. And now we have this weird sort of gaseous green cloud. So we're going to export that single layer as a ping. Call it gas cloud. If you go down to settings in your materials tab, after you've applied your texture, go all the way down to settings, and then under blend mode, it'll be set to opaque. And I can't see through it in the viewport. Like, I can't see the grid lines behind it, so I think that it's truly opaque. But if we go now to alpha blend, you can see the grid lines. So let's Control T this bad boy. Now I want it to cover the entire space, so if 0, 0, 5 is 1 tile and 0, 5 is 10 tiles, then 0, 1, 5 is, or 0.15, sorry, is going to be your 30 by 30. The problem that I foresee happening at this point is I don't think the anchor is going to be seamless. Gas ceiling, look, that sounds great. I'll just go with that. I think that the anchor is going to be offset. Let's see if I'm right. First, let's do a new map, and we'll just do a nice, none of that. Wait, just default, there we go. Actually, let's get a deep forest default going. This might look really cool. That's still, is it still 30 tiles? I think it is. So add assets, maps, objects. We've got it. Looks like it's gonna work. Put it down. Interesting. You see what it does, right? SGB does not care that there is transparency in the model itself. It is making the model cast a shadow regardless of what the texture is. So I still get a shadow as if there's a big opaque block hanging over my head. And I was right, this did offset. It looks like by maybe about exactly 1 tile. So that is something to be aware of. We actually need to move that like right here, I think. Up 1. It's still a little bit off. So if you're gonna make your export size different, well, the 0.900 to change the anchor is only going to work for a 10 by 10 sized plane, but that's okay. I'll continue working at that and figuring that stuff out for you, so you can look forward to more videos on this in the future. For now, if that's something that you're comfortable diving into and trying to figure out the ratio and the algorithm for getting that to set right no matter what you move the X and Y to, then you've got it. You're golden. The reason that it's important is because you might not want a ceiling that covers your entire map. You might not even want a square shape. You might want like a 3 tile wide by 20 tile for just a particular hallway on your map that you know you're not going to have to edit, so you slap that ceiling down and you get back to editing the other parts of the map. You know, so in that case, your X and Y and where you throw those values is going to matter before you export your model. Alright, I think that's how I want to do it. And we are now in first person. Okay, so this more or less did work. Other than the fact that it threw a giant shadow on the ground, it did put the texture up in the air like I wanted. It has complete transparency exactly where it's supposed to have it. So I think that goes there. And then we put another one here. Rotate it. Whoops. Bring it this way. And move it up. Now we've got them on different layers, which gives the effect of parallaxing, which is really, really cool. It wasn't very intuitive to place them, but it does give a very unique effect that I just don't see in any SGB games. I mean, I really don't see ceilings in these things, guys. So take this idea, extrapolate what you have learned from this experience, and run with it. I am actually planning on very soon releasing a pack of ceilings just for you. It will be completely free. I'm going to have all of the different sizes that I can think of. The 10 by 10 will be included, the 30 by 30 will be included, I'll do a 20 by 20, and then I'll do a couple of odd sizes like the 3 by 10, 3 by 20, so you've got some ceilings just for hallways to work with. And I do plan on having them anchor on the ground so you can use them as floors as well, but I'm planning on something pretty special for the textures. So Don't you worry about that. I'm going to have you covered, and you can be sure that they will mesh with the look of your game if you're going to be using any of these default assets for sure. No, I'm not going to be distributing assets that belong to Smile Boom with the ceilings. That would not be right. But I am going to be distributing something that makes sense, and you'll see when I have it. So look forward to that. It'll be free. It'll be royalty free. You can use it for whatever commercial purpose you want. And it's just kind of my way of making sure that things like this stay free and accessible, and you can learn from them and make your projects even better, right? So comments, questions, suggestions, all of that crap down below. Let me know what you think. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you very, very much for watching, and bye-bye. Right? That's an outro. Don't forget, please subscribe. I need subs. I'm almost at 500 as of this video. Patreon, go check out. I mean, that's not. It's goodbye.